Hey everyone, and welcome to the deep dive.
We're Liam and Lisa, and we're really excited to explore something pretty fundamental with you today.
Yeah, something that really shapes our lives. We all know, like raw intelligence is important, right? That mental horsepower.
Uh-huh.
But have you ever stopped to think if there's another kind of smarts? One that maybe impacts our day-to-day interactions, our relationships, even our careers, maybe even more.
And that's exactly what we're diving into today. Emotional intelligence,
Yeah.
or EI, as you often hear it called.
Right. And it's more than just a buzzword you see flying around.
Oh, definitely. It's actually a core set of skills, abilities, really, that can fundamentally change how you navigate the world around you.
Think about those moments.
Yeah.
Maybe you handled a really stressful situation with surprising calm.
Or maybe you just instantly connected with someone new, like you were totally on the same wavelength.
Yeah. Or you pushed through a really tough challenge when you felt like giving up.
Chances are your emotional intelligence was really kicking in during those moments.
So in this deep dive, we're going to break down what EI actually is.
Why it's so crucial, honestly, for everyone from, I don't know, students just starting out to CEOs leading big companies.
And most importantly, we'll get into some practical ways, things you can actually do to boost your own emotional intelligence.
Yeah, get ready for hopefully a few aha moments along the way.
Okay, so let's jump right in. Emotional intelligence. What are we really talking about here? Like the nitty-gritty.
Well, at its heart, EI is about your ability to perceive emotions, first off.
Perceive them, like just notice them.
Notice them, yeah, in yourself and in other people. Then it's about understanding those emotions. What do they mean? What's causing them?
Okay.
Then comes managing them, especially the difficult ones. And finally, using that emotional information to guide your thinking and behavior effectively.
So it's way more than just being like sensitive or touchy-feely.
Absolutely. Way more. It's about being smart with feelings, both yours and others. Think of it like this. Your IQ helps you learn facts, solve logical problems.
Right, the book smarts.
Exactly. EI helps you navigate the messy, complex world of human interaction and your own inner life. They really need to work together.
Okay, that makes sense. And this isn't a brand new idea, is it? I feel like I've heard about it for a while.
No, not brand new.
Yeah.
Well, Daniel Goleman's book in the mid-90s really, blew it up in the popular consciousness.
Yeah, I remember that one.
And the actual research goes back further. Psychologists like Salavi and Mayer were writing about understanding and regulating emotions well before that. Goleman just packaged it brilliantly and showed its huge relevance.
Gotcha. And he outlined like 5 core components, right? That seems like a good framework to use.
It is. It's a really helpful way to break it down. The first one is self-awareness.
Self-awareness. Okay, what does that really entail?
It's basically the bedrock. It means having a really clear, honest understanding of your own emotions, knowing what you're feeling, when you're feeling it, and crucially, why.
And how those feelings affect you.
Exactly. How they impact your thoughts, your decisions, your behavior. It's also about knowing your strengths and, maybe more importantly, your weaknesses when it comes to your emotional life, recognizing your triggers.
So if you're highly self-aware, how does that actually help you in like real life?
Well, for starters, it lets you set much more realistic goals. If you know you get, say, really anxious before big presentations, you can plan for that. Maybe build in extra prep time or practice relaxation techniques instead of just pretending it doesn't happen and then getting overwhelmed.
Right, so you're working with your tendencies.
Precisely. And it helps you align what you do with your core values. When you understand what truly drives you emotionally, what matters deep down, you can make choices that feel more authentic and meaningful. Less internal conflict.
That makes a lot of sense. Okay, component number 2, self-regulation. This sounds like keeping your cool.
That's definitely a big part of it.
Yeah.
Self-regulation is your ability to manage those disruptive impulses or moods.
Like when you feel like snapping at someone?
Exactly. Or getting totally flustered under pressure. It's about hitting pause before you react impulsively. It's about maintaining integrity, acting in line with your values even when you're feeling strong emotions. And it's also about adaptability, handling change effectively.
You mentioned the amygdala hijack before we started recording. What is that exactly? It sounds dramatic.
It is dramatic sometimes. So the amygdala is this small part of your brain deep inside that's like your emotional alarm system.
Yeah.
Especially for threats, fear, anger.
Okay.
Sometimes in really intense moments, the amygdala can basically short-circuit the rational part of your brain, the prefrontal cortex. It takes over.
And you just react.
You just react, often in ways you regret later. Think road rage or yelling something hurtful in an argument.
Hmm.
Self-regulation is about strengthening the connection between that emotional center and your thinking brain so you stay in charge.
Wow. Okay, so how do we strengthen that connection? What are some practical ways to get better at self-regulation?
There are some great techniques. One is called cognitive reappraisal. It sounds fancy, but it just means consciously changing how you think about a situation to change how you feel about it.
Can you give an example?
Sure. Let's say you get some critical feedback at work. Your initial reaction might be defensive, angry, they don't know what they're talking about.
Yeah, it sounds familiar.
Cognitive reappraisal would be consciously shifting that thought to something like, okay, this is tough to hear, but maybe there's something useful here I can learn from. Or, this feedback isn't about me as a person, it's about this specific task. Reframing it.
So you're changing the story you tell yourself about the event.
Exactly. Another really powerful one, maybe simpler, is just the pause and reflect technique. Feel that strong emotion welling up. Just take a breath, count to 5. Give yourself a moment before you respond. That tiny gap can make all the difference.
Just stopping the immediate reaction. I can see how that would help. All right, number 3, motivation. But you said it's maybe not what we typically think.
Right, we often think of motivation as, external rewards, money, promotions, praise.
Yeah, the carrots and sticks.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But the motivation component of EI is more about intrinsic motivation. It's about harnessing your emotions to pursue goals with real energy and persistence because you genuinely want to, because it aligns with something inside you. It's that inner drive.
So it's not just about pushing yourself, it's about finding what actually pulls you forward.
Beautifully put, yes. It's about finding that internal fire that keeps you going through difficulties, that makes you strive for achievement for its own sake, not just for the external payoff. Optimism and resilience play a big role here too.
Okay, so how do we cultivate that kind of motivation?
Well, a big part is setting goals that are genuinely meaningful to you, linked to your personal values.
Hmm.
When you're working towards something you truly believe in, the motivation tends to take care of itself.
Right, it doesn't feel like such a chore.
Exactly. And positive psychology practices can help too. Things like keeping a gratitude journal, consciously focusing on what's good in your life can actually boost your overall optimism and drive.
Huh.
It sounds simple, but it works.
Interesting. Okay, moving on. Number 4 is empathy. This one feels huge for relationships.
It is absolutely critical. Empathy is essentially your ability to tune into other people's emotions, to understand their perspectives, to sense what they're feeling, even if they're not explicitly saying it.
Putting yourself in their shoes.
That's the classic definition, yeah. It's about understanding things from their point of view, feeling with them to some degree. It doesn't mean you have to agree with them, but you understand where they're coming from emotionally.
And why is that so important?
Well, think about it. How can you build trust, collaborate effectively, or resolve conflict if you can't grasp how the other person is feeling or what they might need? Empathy is the glue for healthy relationships, both personal and professional.
Makes total sense. How can we get better at it? Actively practice empathy.
Active listening is probably the #1 tool, and I mean really listening, not just waiting for your turn to talk.
Guilty as charged sometimes.
We all are, but it means putting away distractions, making eye contact, focusing on their words and their body language, their tone of voice, trying to catch the underlying feeling.
And maybe reflecting back what you heard.
Yes, paraphrasing what they said. So it sounds like you're feeling really frustrated because that shows you're genuinely trying to understand. Another exercise is conscious perspective taking. When you disagree with someone, actively try to argue their point of view to yourself. What would it feel like to be them in this situation?
That sounds challenging, but valuable. Okay, 5th and final component, social skills.
Right. Social skills are kind of where all the other components come together in your interactions with people.
So,
Well, if you're self-aware, you understand your impact. If you can self-regulate, you manage your reactions. If you're empathetic, you understand others. Social skills are about using all of that to build rapport, communicate clearly and persuasively, handle disagreements constructively, inspire others, work well in a team, basically navigating the social world effectively.
so it's like the outward expression of the internal EI skills.
That's a great way to put it. It includes things like leadership, conflict management, teamwork, influence, all those abilities that rely on successfully interacting with other people.
And how do we develop those? It feels like a broad category.
It is broad, but things like seeking out honest feedback on your communication style can be eye-opening. We often don't realize how we come across.
Uh-huh. It's scary maybe, but
Yeah.
useful.
Definitely useful. Also, learning specific techniques for things like giving feedback effectively or managing conflict, using I feel statements instead of you always during disagreements, for example. That comes from self-awareness and self-regulation applied through social skill. Observing people who are great communicators or negotiators and trying to understand what they do well, behavioral modeling can also help.
Okay, that gives us a really solid map of what emotional intelligence actually involves. Those 5 components are key. Now let's zoom out. How does having higher EI actually, make a difference in our personal lives?
The impact is huge, really. One major area is stress management and general well-being.
How does that work?
Well, if you're better at recognizing your stress triggers, self-awareness, and managing your reactions to them, self-regulation, you're naturally going to experience less chronic stress. You feel more in control, less overwhelmed. This leads to more positive moods overall.
And resilience. I hear that word linked with EI a lot.
Absolutely. Resilience is your ability to bounce back from adversity, from setbacks. High EI definitely fuels resilience. You can acknowledge the difficult emotions, disappointment, frustration, whatever it is, without letting them completely derail you. You can regulate them, stay motivated, and find ways to move forward. Less chance of burnout, too.
That's massive. What about our relationships? You touched on empathy.
Yeah, relationships are probably where EI shines most obviously. People with higher emotional intelligence just tend to be better at navigating the complexities of human connection.
In what ways?
They communicate more effectively because they can tune into the other person's feelings and perspective. They express their own needs more clearly, but also respectfully. Empathy helps them build deeper connections and understanding.
Fewer arguments.
Often, yes, or at least more constructive arguments. They're better at recognizing emotional cues, like noticing when someone is getting upset before things explode, and they can use their self-regulation and social skills to de-escalate tension. They build trust more easily.
Okay, and what about just our own growth?
Yeah.
Making decisions for ourselves.
EI is crucial there, too. That self-awareness piece we talked about. It's fundamental for personal growth. Knowing your values, your strengths, your weaknesses, that tells you where you need to focus your development efforts. You set goals that are actually right for you.
Not just what you think you should want.
Exactly. And decision-making gets sharper, especially under pressure or uncertainty. EI allows you to factor in the emotional data. How does this choice feel? What's my gut telling me? What are the likely emotional consequences for myself and others? It has a whole layer of valuable information beyond just the purely rational pros and cons.
It's clear the personal benefits are really significant, but you also mentioned it's huge in the professional world. Let's talk about EI at work.
Absolutely critical, increasingly so. Think about leadership, for instance.
Yeah, what makes an emotionally intelligent leader different?
Well, they tend to create much more positive and motivating work environments. Because they have empathy, they can understand their team members' needs and perspectives. Because they have self-regulation, they stay calm under pressure and handle crises effectively. Their social skills help them inspire commitment and build strong, cohesive teams.
So it's not just about being effective.
Precisely. It translates directly into team performance. Teams led by high EI managers generally show higher collaboration. They resolve conflicts faster and more productively.
Less drama, basically.
Less unproductive drama, yeah. And importantly, they tend to foster greater psychological safety.
What's that?
Psychological safety is the feeling that you can speak up, take risks, admit mistakes, or voice dissenting opinions without fear of being punished or humiliated. High EI leaders are much better at creating that kind of environment, and that's where innovation and real learning happen.
I can see how that would boost performance. What about for individuals just climbing the career ladder?
Research consistently shows a link. Higher EI predicts greater career adaptability, basically. How well you cope with changes like new roles, new technologies, or organizational shifts.
Which happens all the time now.
Constantly. It also links to higher confidence in making career decisions. Plus, think about skills like networking, negotiation, understanding office politics. Those are all heavily influenced by empathy and social skills. High EI gives you an edge.
So organizations themselves must benefit if they cultivate this.
Massively. Workplaces with a strong focus on EI often see lower employee turnover. People want to stay where they feel understood and supported. They see reduced absenteeism and higher overall job satisfaction.
Makes sense. Happier employees, better results.
And it's more than just happiness. It's about alignment. Emotionally intelligent practices help align individual motivations and well-being with the company's objectives. People are more engaged, more productive, leading to better organizational effectiveness overall.
Okay, let's talk bottom line. Is there actually like a financial payoff to this for individuals or companies?
Yes, there really is. Several studies have found a direct correlation between EI scores and salary. On average, for each point increase in someone's measured EI, their annual salary tends to go up by a noticeable amount.
Seriously, like a quantifiable amount.
Yeah, some studies cite figures like over $1,000 per point increase annually. And the difference in average earnings between people in the highest quartile of EI and the lowest can be really substantial, tens of thousands per year in some fields.
Wow. That's that's significant.
It really is, and it underscores why organizations are paying attention. The World Economic Forum, for instance, consistently lists emotional intelligence among the top 10 most in-demand skills for the future workforce. It's not a soft skill anymore. It's a strategic advantage.
Okay, that really drives the point home. So if EI is this important and potentially this impactful on our lives and careers, the big question is, can we actually get better at it? Or are we just kind of stuck with what we've got?
That's the really exciting part. You absolutely can develop your emotional intelligence.
Hmm.
Unlike, say, your baseline IQ, which tends to be relatively stable through adulthood, EI is considered a set of skills, and skills can be learned and improved with practice.
Okay, that is good news. So for everyone listening now thinking, all right, I want to work on this, where do they start? What are some concrete things we can do?
A great place to begin is building that foundation of self-awareness. Mindfulness practices are fantastic for this.
Like meditation.
Meditation's excellent, yes.
Yeah.
Even just 5 or 10 minutes a day focusing on your breath and noticing thoughts and feelings as they arise without judgment. It trains you to be a better observer of your inner state. Journaling is another powerful tool.
How does journaling help with EI?
Just taking a few minutes each day to write down what emotions you felt, what triggered them, how you reacted, it helps you spot patterns. You start to see, oh, I always get defensive when X happens, or I feel most energized when I'm doing Y. It brings the unconscious into conscious awareness. Emotional labeling, simply naming the specific emotion you're feeling, can also be surprisingly effective.
Just putting a name on it.
Yeah, sometimes just identifying, okay, this is frustration or this is disappointment can take some of its power away and give you a bit more distance.
Okay, self-awareness through mindfulness and journaling. What about improving self-regulation? We talked about pausing and reframing.
Yes, continuing to practice those cognitive reappraisal techniques, consciously challenging and changing negative thought patterns is key. It's like building a muscle. The more you do it, the easier it gets. And making that pause and reflect a habit. Before you send that angry email, before you jump into an argument, take a breath. Ask yourself, what's the most constructive way to respond here?
Building that little buffer zone.
Exactly. It stops the hijack.
And for motivation, that intrinsic kind, how do we nurture that?
Really connect with your values. Ask yourself what truly matters to you. What kind of impact do you want to have? Then, try to set personal and professional goals that align with those values. That alignment is a powerful source of sustainable energy.
So the why behind the goal matters.
Immensely. And don't underestimate those positive psychology interventions like gratitude practice. Regularly reminding yourself of the good things, big or small, genuinely shifts your perspective and builds resilience, which fuels motivation.
Okay, empathy and social skills. What active steps can we take there?
For empathy, keep practicing that active listening. Put your own agenda aside in conversations and really try to understand the other person's world. Ask open-ended questions. Reflect back what you hear them saying and feeling. And deliberately practice perspective taking. Maybe read articles or books that present viewpoints different from your own and try to understand the emotions behind them.
And social skills, beyond just being aware.
Seek feedback. Ask trusted friends or colleagues for specific, constructive feedback on your communication or how you handle conflict. Maybe even consider more formal training. If it's an area you really want to develop, workshops on presentation skills, negotiation, or conflict resolution can provide valuable tools and practice. Learning models like using I feel, when you, because statements can make difficult conversations much more productive.
Are there more like structured ways people develop EI in schools or workplaces?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
There's a growing movement for social and emotional learning, SEL,
Yeah.
in schools, teaching these skills right from a young age, which is fantastic.
That seems so important for kids.
It really is. And in the corporate world, many companies now offer EI training programs, workshops, and coaching. Things like 360-degree feedback assessments, where you get anonymous input from people you work with, can be incredibly insightful for identifying blind spots related to your EI.
So lots of resources out there if you look for them.
Absolutely. And many companies report a really positive return on investment from these programs, linking back to that improved performance and well-being we talked about.
This is all incredibly encouraging. It feels like something we genuinely have control over improving. Now, just to offer a balanced view, are there any criticisms or things to be cautious about with the whole EI concept?
That's a fair question. Yes, there are some valid critiques worth considering. One is that sometimes, particularly in the sort of pop psychology or self-help realm, the focus on individual EI skills can maybe downplay the role of systemic issues or cultural context.
How so?
Well, how emotions are expressed and even what emotions are considered acceptable varies a lot across cultures and different social environments. An approach that focuses solely on individual regulation might not fully account for those broader factors that influence our emotional lives.
Right, so context matters. What's appropriate isn't universal.
Exactly. Another concern sometimes raised is whether an overemphasis on constantly monitoring and managing your emotions could potentially lead to a kind of a performative emotional state. Or maybe emotional labor, where you feel pressured to display certain feelings at work, for example, even if they're not genuine.
Like putting on a happy face even when you're not feeling it.
Something like that.
Yeah.
The worry is it could lead to inauthenticity or burnout if taken to an extreme, rather than genuine emotional understanding and well-being. Goleman himself has acknowledged some of these limitations and emphasizes that developing EI should ideally go hand in hand with creating healthier, more emotionally intelligent systems and cultures, not just focusing on the individual in isolation.
So it's about finding that balanced, genuine self-understanding and skill, but also being aware of the bigger picture and avoiding just conforming emotionally.
Precisely. The goal isn't emotional suppression or acting. It's developing genuine awareness, regulation, empathy, and social effectiveness in a way that serves both your own well-being and your ability to connect positively with others while being mindful of the context you're in.
This has been incredibly insightful, so much to think about. If we were to boil it down, what are the absolute key takeaways you'd want people to walk away with?
I think the main points are: 1, emotional intelligence is a crucial set of real-world skills, not just some vague concept. It deeply impacts your personal happiness, your relationships, and your professional success.
Okay, number 1, it's real and it matters.
Exactly. 2, it complements but doesn't replace traditional intelligence. You need both IQ and EI to thrive. 3, it's built on those core components: self-awareness, self-regulation, motivation, empathy, and social skills.
Oh yeah, the 5 pillars.
And finally, and maybe most importantly, EI is not fixed. It's something you can actively, intentionally develop throughout your life with practice and conscious effort.
That's the hopeful message. So as you, our listener, go about your day after this, maybe start paying a little more attention to those emotional undercurrents.
Yeah, ask yourself, what am I actually feeling right now? Why? How am I handling this feeling? And what might the people around me be experiencing emotionally? Just bringing that awareness is the first step.
Remember, building your emotional intelligence isn't about getting rid of emotions or becoming some kind of robot.
Not at all. It's about understanding them, using their wisdom, and leveraging them to build a richer life and stronger connections with yourself and with everyone else. It really is a journey.
A journey of continuous learning and growth. We really hope this deep dive has sparked some ideas and given you some practical tools you can start using.
We hope so too. It's a topic we're both passionate about because we've seen the positive impact it can have.
Absolutely. And if you found this discussion valuable or it made you think, we'd really appreciate it if you'd like, share, and subscribe to the channel.
Yeah, that helps us keep bringing you these deep dives into topics that matter. Let us know what you thought in the comments too.
Thanks so much for joining us today.
Thanks everyone. See you next time.